before the black people got their freedom. But even when we got our freedom, you still had to work 10 years after the freedom was granted. And if you were a trade union activist, or organised a strike, they stuck another 2 years on top. There was a headline news in the Wall. It was 2 miners from Wallerford Pit. The evening news at the time ran a headline: 2 miners escaped from Wallerford Pit. There's an APB put out in them to track them down, to drag them back. If you got caught stealing ties in the field because you were starving, you were kicked. They didn't jail you. They put you in the mines, they enslaved you. So I've got along in common with these black people that are fighting their Black Lives Matter. Because I understand. I was class conscious at 12 years old because my old granny was a communist. She voted Labour. And I always asked her, why do you vote Labour, granny? She went, because there's no a fucking communist to vote for. She drummed it into me. So I know what it is to be working class. I can talk all day, but I want this woman to talk. I travelled all the way to England after watching this woman on YouTube. I was drawn to her because I was watching Ranjit Brar, take notes folks, or remember this, and a guy called Bob Gill. Who are speaking out. They are brilliant. They were fighting for our NHS, Dr. Bob Gill and Dr. Ranjit Brar. Her father's name's Harpal Brar. I'm reading his book now. The man is a staunch, stalwart. He's a giant. You'll never hear about him. You've heard about him now. I'm going to introduce you as Joti. I'm going to say to you why we need a workers' party here. The SNP, tartan Tories. The Greens, can't make my mind up about it. Well, I can't categorise them other than just, what are they? What's their bloody policies? They have no policy. If you look deeply into the Greens, they've got no policy. They're like a safety net for these liberal type people that just sick of the Tories. The Liberals, well, you know what they are. They're just Tories with a small t. But we all know what the Tories are. That let the reserve my hatred for Blair, the war criminal, that stole £750 million out of the miners' pension. There's women here. You think periods is bad. Let me tell you, I sympathise with this. Because every bloody month, they take half my pension. So I know what you go through monthly. I go through it and all, but it's different. It's probably not as bad. But please believe me, it's fucking agony to see them stealing my pension. There's a, come on, brother.
No, go ahead, mate.
Can you hear me there? Because I can shoot. I bloody well hope so. What was the last thing I said there? It was all about my miners' pension. Oh, there's a site there for the miners, you know, justice for mine workers, and I read something that broke my heart. There was a widow. They put the pension up £9 a month. The council put her rent up £9 a month. The Tories, Labour, and the SNP, all, and the Liberals, all hate the miners. You know why? Because we know our roots, and we were political, and we knew our stuff. And they took a decision. It was either the dockers or the miners, because the dockers were strong enough. They came to the conclusion that, well, we need dockers. We smash the miners, we can walk right out the top of everybody else. So they kept the dockers, they smashed us, they waged war, civil war, against us. Because they knew To break the working class of this country, they had to first smash the miners. And all the shite that you hear about Arthur Scandal, he was this, he was that. He was the greatest leader this country's ever known. There was office workers, typists, earning more money than a man on a coal face risking his life. I've got my injuries, my thumb, nearly lost it down the pit. These things happen. The deaths, the miners, what was sacrificed, the heat homes, oh, you read us. But no, the Tories thought, just smash them and we'll import the coal. So they shut the last pit. On the last day, the last pit, the last shift, a miner died on his last shift. They shut the pits and for 20 years they still burnt the same amount of coal. They brought it in from third world countries because it was cheaper. They worked almost for nothing. No safety, nothing. But the Tories waged class war and the TUC and that, I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to say it, that bastard Kinnock, him with the comb over, remember? Well, Arthur Scarborough had a better comb over. He was the biggest blunder that well, the second biggest blunder, eh? Well, actually, no, maybe it was the third. It was the first blunder. And getting into power. He lost 3 elections. The man's a 3 times bloody loser. He bent our backwards to make the ruling elite and they still didn't let him into power. Tony Blair came along. Nice suit. He was summoned with Rupert Murdoch to go to Australia, having his pervert paedophile pal, Mandelson. I've seen it, quote me, sue me! He was over on Epstein's Island, frolicking about, doing what he wanted. They were summoned to Australia with Rupert Murdoch. Murdoch told him, I'll put you in power, you'll do what I tell you. And he got into power. And one day, I remember reading it, watching it, Murdoch was going out to number 10. He's right at the cameras. I see what goes here. That piss Blair off. Tony Blair goes in back. He'll never get into power again. Never make a comeback. Because in it, Rupert Murdoch's wife. And that piss Rupert Murdoch never been there. So Blair finished, as far as power is concerned, but he's still active, undermining the struggle against oppression. And now we've got, oh my God, I've not actually made up words for this practice that's running Labour now, Starman. He's the best thing that's ever happened for us, the Workers' Party. The Tories are now going to implement austerity, privatisation, because they've got nothing to worry about. Because what's Starman going to do if he gets into power? He's not going to reverse nothing. Not a thing. And Blair done what even Thatcher wasn't prepared to do. He privatised the health service. You can throw as much money at the health service as you bloody well like. It'll go in the front door, and out the back door, into the pockets of big business. Blair was the privatiser, the architect, him and his right-wing cronies, and the left-wing, so-called left. I am not left-wing, I am a Marxist-Leninist. And that's what the Workers' Party is. We are the real McCoy. We are the ones, the only ones. Read that 10-point programme. You didn't need to understand Marxism. You didn't need to read it. You didn't need to read Lenin. You just need to read that 10-point programme. We are the only ones that have got the policies. And nothing will stand in the way of an idea whose time has come. And anybody that says socialism doesn't work, it will work pretty well. When we had our health service, 200% GDP today, after the Second World War, what did we do? What did we accomplish? House building, massive. Even Macmillan, the Tories built their uses and they got the Labour did. And they created a health service. Even with all that debt, why? Because communist Russia had that there, and people were pointing to it. And there would have been a revolution. A revolution. So Labour won that big election. And now then you got the credit. Now then Conservative governments in Europe done. It wasn't just health services created in Britain, they were created all over Europe. They were created all over Europe because they respected communism, which is no threat to any of you. Communism is the future. Socialism. Call it what you want. But we need a country that is for the many, no for the few. Now, I'm going to hand you over to Joti. She's the second in command of the Workers' Party. George Galloway created that party, he's handed over to us. We now need to start building it. It's happening over Britain. She's on a tour. She hardly been in. But she's all over the place at meetings like this, and there's no lot of people here. It doesn't matter. It's quality that counts. They're all here because we clearly see something's not right. Well, I've known that fella's purely involved, because my granny jumped into it. Without further ado, and Joti. I went to England to listen to this lassie, because I heard her on YouTube, and I just wanted to hear her in person. We're going to hear from Joti. I want you to join the Workers' Party. I want you to get involved. Because if you don't, see your sunglasses. Show them a way to fuck, because your future's not that bright under capitalism. Joti.
Sam's been very kind to say a few words about the family that I come from, just so you understand who I am, for those of you who don't know me from Adam, which is quite a few of you, I think. I have a southern accent, sorry about that. I know up here that just sounds posh. It just means I'm from the south. My father is Indian, my mother is English. I am lucky enough to be from a family of socialists, so I'm a second generation socialist. Like Tam talked about being a third generation socialist. Both my parents were committed socialists all my life. And so I was lucky enough that when I also came to that realisation that if you want to make a difference, you've got to join the movement for socialism, I knew where to look for my education. I didn't have to stumble around for decades. And the difficulty for me was I came to that realisation just after the Soviet Union collapsed. And everybody was going the opposite way. I literally spent the first probably 10, 15 years in the movement being seen as a little bit of an oddball, or possibly more extreme than that. It seemed to be a strange thing to be doing. I was very much swimming against the tide when I was getting my socialist education. But if it's true, it's true. History doesn't move in straight lines. The overall trajectory of history is understood. But in our lifetimes, there's ups and there's downs, there's advances and there's reverses. We've lived through a period of huge reverse. And it's really demoralised our class and our movement, and it's left people feeling like this is what there is. But that's not the case. In our lifetime, we may be unlucky enough to live through a period of reverse. But overall, it is the working class which holds the future of humanity in its hands. So, a little bit about the Workers' Party. We formed a group of committed socialists with George Galloway. We formed the Workers' Party in December 2019. It wasn't an accident, that timing. We had increasingly been becoming aware that there were certain key issues for the working class movement. Brexit was one of them. Identity politics, nationalism, Scottish nationalism, and the question of class were really key, and the question of the Labour Party. And as the Corbyn project was collapsing, it was clear in the run-up to the 2019 election what way things were going. And when that election result was announced, we announced the formation of the Workers' Party. We thought that was the right time to say, look, all you good people who followed Corbyn, and all of you workers who voted for him and hoped against hope, that here was a way to start to turn this tide of defeat and retreat we've been suffering under for 3, 4, 5 decades now. You did your best. You tried to make Corbyn be what you wanted him to be. You tried to make the Labour Party deliver for working people. Surely at this point it's clear to everybody who wants to use their eyes that that project has failed, that in fact it could never succeed, and our job is to, this is where we are, we've got to pick ourselves up, we've got to start again. We've got to really organise the working class people in their own interests. So that was why the timing, that was why we formed the Workers' Party. You know, we're living in a time where the ruling class is really rampant. Tam talked about the defeat of the miners. It wasn't an accident, as he says, that the miners were the ones who the ruling class chose to wage an all-out war on. Miners have been the vanguard, the front, the advance guard of the working class, the organised working class in Britain since, you know, the middle of the 19th century. And they've always been the most militant, the best organised, the most socialist, the most committed to the class fight, and the best at fighting for the class's interests. And taking the miners out was a clear strategy for being able to roll out the agenda of pushing back the welfare state. As Tam said, the welfare state and all of the concessions that were given to workers after World War II were not done because of the wonderful values of the capitalists, the kindness of their hearts, or the wonderful nature of British democracy. They were done with a gun to the heads of the ruling class. Imperialism was on the retreat after World War II. Imperialism was defeated in many countries, on its knees in others, badly shaken here. Only in the US was imperialism becoming stronger. And it was US imperialism that propped up all the other imperialists to help them get back off their knees. And part of that process was giving huge concessions to the workers in Western Europe who were ready for socialism, who wanted what the Soviet Union had. We got those concessions because of the strength of the working class movement, nationally and internationally. Socialism was advancing and imperialism was retreating, but they regrouped their forces. I'm not going to go into all the reasons why they were able to overcome our resistance and go back on the offensive. But that is what happened. And right now they're rampant, because our movement has been destroyed, actually. Our organisations have been destroyed. And so they feel they can get away with anything. I mean, actually right now, the imperial system is in crisis. The national economies everywhere are in crisis. The ruling classes are not united against us. They're fighting each other. They're fighting each other about the best way to ride out the crisis. Who should bear the brunt? How will they survive? How will the various monopolies get one over on one another to survive this very deep crisis in the economy? But they feel that they can discount us as a force because we're so disunited, we're on our knees, we're fragmented and isolated individuals. And so they fight in front of us, feeling confident that we're not able to take advantage of their division and their weakness. They carry out their raids on the Treasury, their corrupt practices, on a bigger and bigger scale, more and more publicly. Confident that no matter how many exposés there are in the Times or the Guardian, there will be no real pushback. We can't right now hold them to account. They're right. There's a reason they're so confident. There's a reason Boris gets away with all of his crimes, and we know what he is, and we see all of his crimes exposed, and we just go, well, better than Stalin. It's probably true. You know? So the point is that really the choice? Is that what we're down to? This, sink lower and lower and watch our politicians, you know, take the mickey out of us and line their pockets whilst handing, you know, all of the state funds up to the monopolists to try to keep them afloat, and choose between Boris or Starmer? That's your lot as the working class. You know, this system is in crisis. There's more economic shocks to come. We have not in any way had the worst of it. There's going to be more push to driving down of wages and conditions, more push for austerity. They'll tell us now that's because we've got to pay for COVID. COVID. It wasn't managing the health crisis that put us into billions and billions of debt. It was bailing out big business. They've done it again. There was another big bailout of big business a year and a half ago. They called it a COVID bailout so that the workers wouldn't take to the streets. Because if they'd said, we're bailing out the monopolies because there's been a crash on the stock market and their shares are tumbling and the bottom's falling out of the market, would people have accepted that after 2008 and everything we've endured since 2008? They wouldn't have done. They didn't tell us the truth. They told us Rishi Sunak got his chequebook out and he was the saviour of the nation. On one day, just the first day, he wrote cheques for 660 billion. Now, they said it was for us, to help us get through COVID. Anybody who tried to access COVID funds will know how hard it was for ordinary people and how many ordinary poor workers and small business owners, self-employed people, let's tell the truth, contract people, people who weren't on the right books, how hard it's been for so many people to put food on the table through this period, and how it's getting harder still. All that money they've printed is the major driver of the inflation we're now seeing. Money printing is not a free exercise. Money printing devalues our currency. It means your savings are worth less. It means that your wages are worth less. And it drives prices up. They're stealing from us in front of our faces in 100 different ways. They steal from us when they keep printing billions of currency. They steal from us when they bail out big business and close down our community centres and our doctors' surgeries and our social housing is sold off. And they're driving towards war. The ultimate direction, the ultimate get out from crisis for the imperialist ruling class is war. Unless we are organised to stop them, that's where we're ending up. You see it every day how we're being softened up. My little boy is 10. He made a joke at the dinner table the other day about nuking Russia. I had to ask him where he got that idea from. Why Russia? Why nuking? These ideas are being popularised amongst our children to soften us up for the idea that Russia and China are our enemy, to soften us up for the idea that a nuclear war is some kind of inevitable thing, a nuke's just a thing that you drop, on someone who's bad. We are being prepared for a big war, and we are the ones who will pay the price for that war. So all of that leads us to believe that the working class is really in desperate need of organisation. Our rulers strive to divide us. They use every means at their disposal to keep us isolated and separate and fighting one another and feeling our differences from one another. They spend inordinate amount of time and resources on telling us how different we are from one another. Celebrate your diversity. You can't understand you because you had a different upbringing and a different background and a different set of historical circumstances, and you've got different colours of skin, or you've got different genders, or whatever it might be. You're different to one another. You can't understand one another. This whole academic disciplines in all, discovering our differences and working out how to talk to one another from our separate places of difference. There's a huge industry in division, precisely because our weapon is organisation, and to organise we have to be united. Our response as workers to the attempts of the ruling class to divide us has to be the striving for unity. And for that, our first task is to bring back a sense of class. Because that's what's never talked about, has been almost forgotten by the workers in this country, that they are part of a class. First and foremost in this society is your relationship to how things are made. Do you have to sell your ability to work in order to live? If you do, no matter what your wage, you're a worker. If you don't, you're not a capitalist because you have some money in your pocket, or because you bought your house, or you own a car. You're a capitalist if you own enough capital to put your capital to work by exploiting the labour of others. If you can employ employ others with your capital and make money from their work, you're a capitalist. You might be a small-scale capitalist or a really big one. If you can't do that, if you're living by selling your ability to work, you're a worker. Workers don't understand that. When we founded the Workers' Party, the first thing that happened was the social media response. But, you know, we had a ton of people saying, what about me, I'm employed? What about me, I'm retired? What about me, I'm a mum? Yes, but you're working class. You're working class in all those situations. You can be a retired worker. You can be a worker who's never been given a job. It's not your fault you weren't given a job. You still need a job to survive. We need to bring back that understanding to our class, that they are a class, and a sense of the power of the working class. We've lost our understanding of our power. That was the thing that frightened the ruling class about the miners and unions like them, their militant organisation, which actually could wield power in the country. They used their economic power to stand up for themselves and fight back against the encroachments of capital. But the reality is, while capitalism exists, the best the workers can hope for is to stand still in terms of their conditions of life. In order to stand still, they have to fight all the time to defend what they have, because capital always wants more. There's no limit to how much capital wants from us. The lowest physical limit is a limit that you guys don't want to see. What's the absolute minimum on which you can stay alive? Well, look around the slums of the world and you'll see it. That's where the logic of capital drives the fight between the workers and the capitalists. The desire to maximise profits brings with it the desire to crush wages and conditions and everything else that takes away from profit. And they are inversely in proportion to one another. In society generally, if profits are high, wages are low. If wages climb, profits decline. That's the relationship. They will try to fudge us with all kinds of nonsense, jargon from bourgeois economics. It's voodoo, all of it. The reality is, profits and wages are related like this. They can go that way or they can go that way. And our interests are exactly opposite to the interests of the capitalists because of that. And for many other reasons. But essentially, at the heart, that's the relationship. We need to understand our power. We are the wealth creators. The working class creates all the wealth in society. Capital doesn't create wealth. The only way capital grows is if it is invested in exploiting labour power. If you can employ other people with your money, they will make wealth for you, and your capital will grow. That's the root of all, the source of all the wealth in our society. All wealth has been created by the labour of workers. All of it. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. All wealth is created by the work of the working class. We are the wealth creators. It is our wealth that is stolen from us in front of our faces on a daily basis by the owners of capital. These are fundamental truths that our class needs to understand. It doesn't understand them right now. It needs to. And we need to understand our power in the economy. They can't do anything without us. They can't fight a war without us doing all of the jobs that go to make the munitions and fight and transport and put the propaganda out. All of it is done by workers. All of it. We make everything. We move everything. Nothing happens in this society without us. If we're organised and start to use that power, we can demand whatever we want. That's the reality that is kept from us by a media which focuses on individuality and difference. I just wanted to say a word about how nice it is to see some women in this hall today. Proper grown-up women different ages, and how important that is to our movement. I don't want to say it in a patronising or, women v men or anything like that, but we know in our lives, women are the backbone of our communities. Women run everything. At the grassroots level, that really matters to ordinary people's lives, women run the family, women run communities. When you go to a country where the working class movement, where the socialist movement is strong and vibrant, its backbone is women, everywhere. In Latin America, I've been lucky enough to go a few times to Latin America, and the socialist movement there is huge. Even in the countries where they currently have like reactionary governments, they still have huge and very vibrant socialist movements, and they're full of women. Full of women. Women are the backbone of our movement all over the world, in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America. It's very noticeable that the countries with socialist or progressive governments produce working class women politicians. In London right now, the ambassador and all of the staff in the embassies from Cuba, Nicaragua and Venezuela are all women. Strong women, working class women. We will not succeed as a party and as a movement if we are not creating the conditions in which working class women want to join us and are helping us to do it. I've lived through a time when working class politics was a fringe activity for strange people. And for too many years I've been the only woman in the room because of that. Because it felt like a boys' club, like a kind of hobby, outside of the mainstream of life. But if we want to be successful, we have to be right at the heart of life. And we have to try and win our sisters as well as our brothers away from all of the diversions that are thrown at us. It breaks my heart to see the rubbish that's thrown at our daughters in school. I see girls getting up 2 hours early before school, not to read or to play a sport or to learn an instrument or to develop their brains, but to do their makeup and their hair and their nails and make sure they have the right bag, which is not a school bag, it's a fashion bag. And to adapt their uniforms to the latest of fashion. I'm not saying let's not have pride in our appearance, but what is it telling our girls if when from 11 years old they're learning the importance of appearance over everything? Some of them 2 hours in the morning to get themselves ready to see the world. At that age, what a waste. And what programming for our brains about what matters and about who you are. And the more that you invest in that stuff, the worse you feel about yourself. It's a message that you're not enough. It's a message that appearances are more important than what's inside. It's a message about your role, to be decorational, rather than have a meaningful contribution. Socialist consciousness is the opposite. We're about showing people that they've got something to contribute to society, that there's something worth contributing to, and something we can aspire to, which is more than the right products or the right level of approval from social media or the right boyfriend or whatever it might be. We've got something different to say, but we need to be building a culture that brings everybody in, that welcomes everybody into our united activity. Fundamentally, we need to build our organisation. The working class is desperately, desperately lacking decent organisation. Desperately lacking. And it needs it. You know that. You feel that in your life in every direction. You feel the lack of our power, our organisation, our ability to say no to anything. We'll only be as successful as the workers make us. We'll only be as successful We've got to get out and find every worker who is prepared to play a part now. We know further shocks are in store for the working class. And we know that the culture of political activity has been really undermined and dismantled in this. People feel in this society, and people feel emasculated, they feel demoralised, they feel powerless. They feel like powerless individuals. What's the point in trying? I'm busy. But people who were busier and had harder lives than us have built big movements. It's not really the busyness so much as the state of mind that's been inflicted on us that stops us getting organised. It really is our state of mind, our demoralised individual state of mind, our isolation, the breakdown of our communities, the breakdown of our sense of class. We need to get out and meet people and find those people, and they are out there, those people who are ready right now to play a part in rebuilding our movement. Now, before they hit the absolute rock bottom, the mass of the working class will move when they find that things are bad enough. When something happens to make them really angry, they'll move and you won't be able to keep up. But there are people out there who are ready to move now, before the rock bottom has been arrived at. And we need to be finding them and training them and building an organisation with those people. Training them and educating them in socialism, in organisational skills, helping them to become trusted figures in their communities, so that they are people who are listened to by the people around them. So the Workers' Party develops a connection with the masses and a trust of the workers. You can't do anything if people don't trust you. We need to be finding the best of the working class, the people who are ready right now to act, and pulling them in. And that means getting out and talking to people. Because we don't get any help, we don't get any head starts. Social media is all very well, but most people aren't on it. Not really on it. We don't get any help from the mainstream media. We get the opposite. We get conspiracy of silence, and that's not an accident. It's not an accident. Because we are the real opposition. The workers mustn't be allowed to know we exist. We will know we're starting to make progress when they start to attack us. Right now, they're trying to smother us with silence. When we grow and start to have successes, they will attack us. And we'll know. That means we're starting to do something right. That means they're starting to be worried about us. That the silence hasn't worked, and the next phase is attack. And we have to be ready for that. Prepared, unlike the Corbynistas, prepared to stand up against that. And say, well, of course they would attack us, wouldn't they? Of course they would, because our interests and theirs are opposite. It is, ultimately, it's us or them. But they represent the past of humanity, not the future. They represent inequality, poverty, homelessness, war. They're unable to use the amazing productive capacity that they have overseen the development of. They're unable to make use of it. We have the ability to provide everything everybody needs to every single person on this planet. Not just at a basic level, at a decent level, in harmony with nature. A healthy, dignified, meaningful, peaceful, prosperous, secure life is possible right now for every person on this planet. Capitalism can't deliver it. It can't. Capitalism sucks all wealth up into a pile in the hands of a dwindling number of people. There's no trickle-down, no such thing as trickle-down economics. We have suck-up economics. It's a concentration, constant process of concentration of humanity's wealth. The wealth that the working class produces, constantly being sucked into the hands of a tiny, tiny number of people. There's no future for humanity under capitalism. None. It's given to the world everything it has to give. Every part of progress that came with capitalism has been delivered. Now all it does is hold us back. All it does. is hold us back from using what we have, putting that technology and that scientific advance and those cultural advances in the hands of the people. It's incapable of serving the interests of people and meeting their needs. It only spreads poverty, division, and war. We can only demand our rights. Rights within this system, and the right to take history forward outside of this system, past this system, through force of numbers. That is our weapon. The force of numbers. And you can only harness the force of numbers with organisation. That's the message we have to understand here, and the message we have to take to everybody we know. We are the world creators. We are the future of humanity. We can only use our power by organising and uniting. If you care about the environment, if you care about the future for your children, if you care about security, about peace, about prosperity, if you want to live in sanity, with a community, healthily, with culture, if you think those things should be available to everybody, you need to be a socialist. You need to join the movement to make that happen. The fruits of human knowledge and civilization, they're the birthright of every human. They belong to the workers. We have to organise so that all of humanity's hard-won knowledge, understanding, can be put at the service of humanity, to solving our problems and meeting our needs.
Hello? I didn't need to say, I'm just confused, mate. I don't want to say it much more, really. I want to hear from you people now. You know, Eddie's, tell me your stories. You know? Tell me what you think, where we're heading. Do you see a future? Do you see anything positive? My wife wants to speak, I'll get shut up. Stevie here, Stevie's a janitor in the school. He wants to talk.
So I'm a janitor to private taxis as well, just to get money to get by basically. I was living in a private rent flat. It was 800 quid for a 2-bedroom flat, and we just couldn't afford it anymore. I've got 3 kids, a girlfriend. We moved back in with my mum just before lockdown, just to try and save for the deposit to buy a new house. And because we've been on the council list for 7 years, and just we weren't getting anywhere. So we finally, over lockdown and stuff, managed to save up £12,500 for the deposit, and we went to the bank to try and get a mortgage, and they only give us up to 95,000, which roughly 110,000 in Edinburgh you can't even get a 1-bedroom flat for. Never mind a 3-bedroom flat. We'll be looking at maybe move over the water. It's a lot cheaper, you get more for your money, but it's not ideal, and we're still nowhere near that to get that kind of profit for that price. So we're not really sure what we're going to do really. Janitors used to get a house, they don't anymore. The wages never went up. They did pay rent on their house. It wasn't anywhere near what we were paying for our private accommodation. So we don't know what to do today. So that's really it.
Well, you made the first step coming here, mate. This just shows you the injustice and the ludicrous situation that we're in. Janitors had a subsidised house because they had shit wages. The janitors that were there bought their janitor's house, cashed it in, so there's no janitor's houses now. They never got the wage increase that they needed to try and pay for you can't get a council house. Basically, this guy's responsible for folks' kids. And he's just pointed out to you that he's worked his bollocks off, 2 jobs,
I call him Stevie Two Jobs. 2 jobs trying to save money. Every time he gets closer, he shines the goalposts. Yeah, the houses is going to go up. The real measure of inflation is not the shit basket of currencies that they put out. It's the cost of your transport to get into work through the roof. And the cost of the housing. If you stop building council houses and you have less housing, the value is going to go up. Monopoly used to be called the landlord's game. It wasn't a monopoly. That was what has been turned into a game. It was created to explain how capitalism worked. And this is what we're turning into. And there is living proof for you of the impossibility of that man's situation. 3 kids, and he can't get a bloody house. He's not going to get a house because it's an infinite waiting list to get onto the council. He's not even a priority with 3 kids. Stevie, you make the right step coming here, son. Join the Workers' Party, because we're all the ones that have got land reform, family help. Joti will tell you about that. I'm going to shut my mouth. When you answer that
I just
one.
wanted to make a small observation on the wider question of housing that your case is such a graphic example of. You know, when in the Thatcher years they brought in the right to buy, what they never explained was they had at one stroke abolished the right to a home. Actually, workers in this country, between the Second World War and 80, what years, they brought in much like 85, something like that, in those short decades, workers had the right to a home. The selling off of social housing was the abolition of that right. That's what they never explained to people. They made out like they were making people rich. You can buy your house at a rock bottom price and you'll be a homeowner. If you're a homeowner, it's like you've made it, right? You're a capitalist now, you own some property. They abolished the right to a home. And we've seen what's happened. When you turn the housing stock into a commodity, and particularly now, when capitalism is in crisis, and there's so much, you know why houses are so expensive? There's so much surplus wealth sloshing around the world, looking for places to make profit. You know, there's a problem for the capitalists. The more profit they make, the more money they have that needs investing to make more profit. And it gets harder and harder to find places to invest that money, productive places to invest the money. So they end up speculating. They speculate on the stock market, that's why the stock prices are so high. They speculate in property. Property becomes an asset to be speculated in. It's gambling, really. It's an asset bubble, but what it does is drive the prices up. And, of course, when we have no choice but to be in private rented or privately bought accommodation because social housing has been essentially abolished, we're at the mercy of what's happening to the prices around us. Have our wages gone up to take account of that? No. Our real wages in the last 40 years have gone down and down and down and down. In fact, our actual wages have been essentially static, while the price of living has gone, well, we've seen it, I mean, astronomically higher. And the number of things that we have to pay for keeps going up with privatisation, education, healthcare. And the healthcare bills and the education bills are only going to get bigger. More aspects of our health service and our education service are being sold off. Our housing bill is going through the roof. This is what capitalism looks like. That short period we had of some concessions, some big concessions to the working class, was to persuade us that our problems could be solved without socialism. You don't need to take state power into your hands. You don't need to take over. We'll give you the things you need, the things you're after, the things the people in the Soviet Union have got. But we got to pay a limitation. And the second that the ruling class felt strong enough and felt that they needed to, they started to take it back. We've seen that. All the games that we thought were forever are being taken away. We'll look back and realise it was just a temporary period of retreat for the ruling class. They retreated, they regrouped, they came back on the offensive. We must learn our lesson. Nothing is for keeps while this system remains, as far as we're concerned. You fight to stand still if you're lucky. You're on the back foot all the time. Your relative position in society only goes down. Because even if you manage to keep yourself at the same level, just by working, you're making the capitalist class richer. They're always, in terms of the amount, the proportion of society's wealth that goes to the capitalists, it gets bigger. Like every day it's getting bigger proportionally. Even if we're getting good wages, that's true. Even if our standard of living doesn't drop, which in fact it has been dropping, desperately declining for 40 years. We've got to learn our lesson from all of this. You know, we can't be content with crumbs. Yes, we must organise to stand up and fight back under the present conditions for small gains, whatever they are. Really to start to use our power and recognise it and get what we can. But we mustn't be satisfied. We mustn't stop halfway because we're selling out our children if we do. Those people who believed the Labour Party in 1945, you've got everything you need right here, and just keep voting Labour and things will keep getting better. They allowed themselves to be sent to sleep, and they sold out the interests of their grandchildren in doing so. They were in a position of strength. That was a moment to keep pushing, to understand, no, the class war is not a joke. It's real, and it never goes away. In a class society, the class war is a permanent state of affairs, and if you're not on the offensive, you're retreating. We have to understand these things and bring back that understanding to ourselves, our communities, our children. You know, like it or not, it's true. You know, I have this thing sometimes in my family. It's like, oh, Mum, you would say, oh God, no, you make everything about socialism. No, it's so boring. You know, and I say to them, well, I'm just telling you the truth. There's no point blaming me because the things I say are unpalatable and you wish they weren't true. You can bury your head in the sand all you want. This is the truth. If we take the truth to ourselves, it's a power. Knowledge is power. But first we have to accept the truth. It might be uncomfortable. It might not be what you want to hear. If it's true, it's true. It's better to face it, recognise reality and deal with it on the basis of understanding it, than hide from it and wish it, or try and wish it away, because it's going to come for you. If you're not standing up and fighting back, you're being pushed all the same.
Many of us have been to a funeral and heard the Lord giveth. Stevie's going to go and pick his kids up. Thanks, Stevie.
Yes, thank you, Steve.
You've heard the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Thatcher giveth, Boris has just took it back. Anybody sitting here right now that owns a house, it's not an asset now. It's something they can take off you with. The Care Act, Joti spoke about that to me earlier today. They're going to take your house back off you once you get ill. And even if you do get ill, 100% of you sitting here are going to get old and need care. And the workers' party are the only ones committed to protecting your asset. At the end of the day, we've got a policy. The house comes up for sale, we're in power, we'll buy it back, and we need to reduce it back as council house stock. We'll not rob it for you. The Tories say, well, the socialists want to take it off you. No, fucking Tories are stealing it off you. And they're putting it into the hands of these care companies that they've all got their finger in the pie of these things. Boris says, oh, we'll not take your house off you. Liar! Lie. They just passed it in Parliament. If any of you have watched the debate, you can see it. I'm going to take your house off here at that time. Not one of you can sit here and say that you're not going to fall ill and need care. Just think of Alzheimer's, MS, motor neuron disease. There's a whole load of things can go wrong. And they'll take it off you. They're taking your council house back. Your asset will not be left to your kids, they'll be taken and sucked to you. And it's not a big stretch in that. Imagine it. That's what the Tories do. have their blue cheese and their pork and their lines of cocaine. Just to stretch your imagination for that, they'll say, what about long-term unemployed? Let's tag that money to the hooses. Because in America, and this is where we're heading, look at America and you'll see it. Biggest bankruptcies are caused by ill health. They first have to spend their savings, then they've got to remortgage their house because they're ill, they've had an accident at work, whatever. And they can't pay it back, so they end up on the streets. It's not a big stretch of imagination for you to see that they will expand that here Act to include long-term unemployed. Well, let's make it 2 years to begin with. Then it'll be a year and a half, it'll be a year. It's the old Chinese thing, death by 1,000 cuts. And let me say this, I'm predicting this. You all know, in the future, it might take a few years. They'll never ever put it on their electioneering thing. Once they'll tell lies, they end up power, and then they'll whoosh. It will happen. In actual fact, it might be Labour that does it, because Starmer is no different to the Tories. And neither the SNP. The SNP have kept prescription. You know, I hear from SNP activists, we gave these free prescriptions. They gave us nothing. They had that. We just no took it back yet. Because we need England to subsidise Scotland. My big worry is, and everybody should be worried is, if English nationalism grows and they decide to leave the UK, we're in a shitload of trouble. Because Scotland no longer makes nothing. Whisky trade is private. 6 people own 90% of Scotland. SNP don't have land reform on there. They have no policy on land reform. We do. We'll fucking take it. Okay, we'll compensate them based on proven need. But we'll take it because it belongs to the people. It belonged to the people in the beginning. And they took it through force. The future's dystopian. The only way forward is to organise the Great Wall of China. It's got billions of bricks in it. But it was laid with the first brick. I see the first bricks in a movement here. I see people, the people that have been fighting 6 blocks. I want to hear your story. Because I'm really impressed that the individuals are fighting. Been in the 6 blocks, my daughter lives in the Smittery. Heroic struggle to try and get things done in the uses. It could be nice uses, but riddled it down. They've had no money spent on them. And single-handedly, there's been, well, 1 or 2. I went to my first living rent meeting. I live in Untitled, I never heard these at all. They tell me, or my daughter told me. Can I get socialism in the 6 blocks, company? We need to all unite. We need councillors. And I see a councillor sitting here right now. We want you in the Workers' Party. We want all you in the Workers' Party. I'm looking at councillors, MPs. Exponential equation. You heard of that? Everybody here goes out and convinces, take that 10-point programme, convinces one other person to come with doubling numbers. They then convince one other person again to grow. All go Facebook. It's going to be hard, I promise you, nothing but struggle. That I'm here, the Tories never broke me, and they'll not break me. I'll fight to the day I die. For me, this struggle for the it's a revolution that we need to fight. Join us. This meeting's a beginning, brothers and sisters. I'm calling these comrades now, because that's how we talk, comrades. Join us. Recruit. And pick our champions. I joined the Labour Party, Corbyn, for my pension. It hurts me every month. It keeps me going. Hate. The oppression of my class keeps me going, and it'll keep me going to the day I die. I'll never stop. And you're all sitting here, and you know, son, I'm so proud of you. Going to do that living bread meeting. Because it filled me with hope to see that people are actually fighting. But you can't fight without dialogue. You need drywall at your back. And drywall won't be at your back because I'm going to get them doing it. I'm going to, you get your leaflets for the 6 blocks, I'll get them in drywall too. Because we've got problems in drywall that are similar to the problems that you've got in the 6 blocks. We've got to unite and spread. Maggie, I'll leave what's to tell you the story. She's no use to public speaking. She's a bag of nerves. Stand up, be brave.
Hey, I'm Maggie. I'm a cleaner at Ferryhill Primary School. Worked there for 20 years, but the last 6 months I've been feeling sick. Due to stress, bullying for a supervisor, so I get a call in from one of my main bosses for a meeting, supposedly to speak about my mental health. After the meeting, she told me I was being monitored from the top of the council, because I had opened up a Facebook group for us unhappy cleaners that are overworked in school. She then told me to close the group and take it down, or the council were taking legal action against me. So I was forced basically to take the group down. Well, I've now got another group opened up, a new group called Strippers 71. Please come and join me in this fight for our jobs and our rights. As they're scared of us organising, we need to fight back. That's really all I've got to say.
The moral of that is, she's being monitored. You see the size of Maggie. When she was on the Unite page, trying to air grievances, the union was saying, you can't say this, you can't say that. What? Free speech doesn't exist. So she put up a site and a link. Come on my site and say what the hell you like. It's sad, but there are workers that will tout.
All over the schools, every school.
She had, there was tens and tens, and nearly 40 people had started joining the site, started to scare them. The moral of that story is, the bosses at the very top are scared of organised labour. So she set a new site up, and they've got to talk in code. So the council is now referred to as the Cahulia. And the supervisors, well, they thought Gestapo's a good name for them. They're short of cleaners. What did they do? They employed 12 more supervisors that don't do any work. They just go in police.
Or agency workers that actually get 50p an hour more than the actual school cleaners. They get more money than us for coming in and whatever they have to do. Yes? They get, and I've been there 20 years, they get more money than we do.
Aye.
And this meeting was supposedly about her mental health, which she's off because of workplace pressure and bullying. Does that not come under bullying? Threatening you at the end of the meeting, get your site done, or we're coming after you. That's basically what they say to you.
Legal action.
Legal action. Oh. Good, sir. What's your name?
The observation,
What's your name?
my name's Frank, Frank Hockey, I stay in London. Just a point, do you know that trade union?
The trade union,
Unite.
Unite?
seriously, the thing like to say things and want to say it at the workplace.
The union?
No, the thing like this, I'm on the Unite page, and basically if you complain about work and things like that, they'll say, we'll look into it, and then I'll go back to them and I'll say, what's happening, anything happening, have you looked into that, or we've been a bit busy lately, this is the excuse I get, every school is the same, Maggie, everybody's short staff, and we've just got to knock in and get on there, that's just not good enough. Because most of the people I work with, like 2 lasses have had strokes in the last year, we're doing double the work, the council cuts, we're taking the brunt of the council cuts, because we're not taking any other staff.
I've done a wee bit of work in the schools and the NHS when I'm working for trade union, what the shit does, I was seconded to do some what they organise in the workplace environment. What they call that is Joti, where they get firefighting or get you to do the same job.
That's
And they're
ridiculous.
people. I don't know why the rules will take us longer to do that. I'm the GMB, so I don't know why the next I know, the union was the combination of other unions, the general transport workers and
Right
all
now,
that.
I didn't really trust you now. I was really concerned most of my life, and I left doing it because I honestly felt like it didn't give a shit. I'm sorry to do that. I felt like it didn't give a shit, really, right? And then I went to Unite because I thought, they're actually fighting for the cleaners, and this looks great. They were going to go and strike for a pay rise and things like that. They've accepted 5.8%, which is about £2
Is that
on
over
my
a period of time though? Is that over about 2 years, 3 years?
wages.
Now that is that way up to August,
£2 on my wages a month. You can even buy bread and milk for £2 a month. It's ridiculous. And after now, I'm doing a 5-hour job. I only do 2.5 hours. So I'm running a bit like mad, having to try and get everything done. And if you didn't get it done, then you're being criticised because, oh, I'm failing your work because this isn't done, that's not done. You just didn't have to say, dear.
well, that actually makes you like he's
No,
you
I'm off.
right.
I've never been on tablets in my life, and I am now.
I
Because of my
feel
mental
like
health.
the unions capitulated to the management side. Oh, I've already spoken
There's
to
too many management in the union, I think.
I don't really should be any management in the union.
Well,
You
you know,
like
you know
it.
the women that's like union reckons and my
He's
work.
getting conveners.
She's a boss in Unite. But I don't think that's right because she's also a supervisor in my schoolwork. So I don't think that's right, Ken, because she sticks up for mainly